Hey there, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Things are a little bit different now, not a lot different, but a little bit, because we got a new version. It's 0.17.1, and we have music now. You probably can't hear it very well because I've turned it right down because it was overpowering my voice in the recording. But there is now music. You'll have to take my word for it. It's quite nice music too, actually, but it's only it only comes up on this loading screen here, or the menu screen. So I'm not sure how much use it is because you're never really going to listen to it. Either way, we're going to go ahead and get something accomplished. This, however, is a different save file to the one I was using before. So this is not the one where we landed on Minmus last time. We have different satellites right here. We have 16 satellites and one landed ship at Space Command. So we have these ones right here that are crossing over this way, horizontally and vertically, are the H satellites. They're the CurbSat H's. There's 1 to 8 of those, and they're orbiting at around 200,000 meters. And the ones which are crossing over this way, they're pretty much the same, but oriented different, are the L satellites, the CurbSat Ls. They're 1 to 8 as well, and they're at 100,000. So you've got 100,000 and then 200,000 for the H's. So we also have one more ship right here, which is named Kerbal Space Command, because it is actually sitting right at Kerbal Space Command, and the reason for that is I like to know where Kerbal Space Command is from space. So I just drop one down there, and in the pod here, this little like worker right here, we have Jebediah, Bill, and Bob Kerbin. They are the 3 original Kerbinauts. If you played the older versions of KSP, you'll know that those are the 3 Kerbinauts that you had to launch every time. You had no choice in what kind of pod you had on top. You had to have the Mark 1 pod, which took all 3 of these guys. But the Mark 1 pod is no more, and these guys are assigned to different missions. However, I got them all 3 in this one launch. I don't know if that's common, but it seems to be that every time I start, I get these 3 in the first 3 flights, or the first flight with 3 seats. So I took them and I put them into this spacecraft, and I've chucked them down here, sort of relative safety away from the launch pad. I haven't hit them yet, and I've launched quite a lot of missiles. Well, I suppose they are missiles, but I've launched quite a lot of rockets, and I haven't managed to hit them yet. So we're doing okay. And they're gonna watch over Space Command and give me basically a marker from space. So there it is. That's Kerbal Space Command at KSC, Kerbal Space Command. So I can see that from no matter where I am. So I can orientate my my landings or whatever. Or if I want to do a geosynchronous orbit, I could do one there over KSC. So it's good to know where everything is. Anyway, we're going to go back to the Space Center. And what we're going to do today, because we don't have any satellites on the moon or in Minmus, we don't have any landers there. What we're going to do is we're going to put a space station into orbit around Kerbin. It's going to go to 1 million meters around, so it's going to be sort of there-ish, about sort of that, something like that. And it is going to look like this. Is 116 parts, so it's really big, really useless. But we're going to take a look at it. Here it is. This is it. This is probably the biggest thing I've ever launched into orbit, which was not full of fuel. It's a massive payload, and it's completely pointless, basically. These nacelles on the side here, they have no fuel in them. They're topped with, what are those? They're parts of an engine, I think. Where is it? The bits. Here, this thing. An engine nacelle, which is for air intake and increased fuel flow to exhaust systems. So basically completely useless. They're not connected to engines. They're not going to do anything. And they've got RAM air intakes up here, which look really cool, but are doing nothing because there's no engine attached to it. We have a lot of RCS though. We've got a couple of huge RCS units right there and a small RCS tank right there, and they're just covered in RCS. which we will use at the very last stage of our orbiting, just to get the very last bits of the orbit just right, or as close to just right as I dare to do. We also have a lot of SAS on this, advanced SAS in fact. We've got 4 of these. There's 2 there, 2 at the bottom, and we have 2 smaller advanced SAS in the middle. So this thing, really huge, covered in ladders as well, which are going to weigh it down. Not a huge amount, but they do weigh it down. And they're basically just there so that we can do EVAs and park our Kerbinauts on them, so they can just sort of stand on the ladders and look out into space or whatever. Maybe in future they'll add things that you can do in space, like when docking is introduced, perhaps they'll be able to do something in space, and those ladders will become useful. But for now, they're just there to allow me to jump out and do little EVAs for no reason. So that's what we're going to launch. It's also got some landing struts down here, which are basically it's a makeshift docking system. If I put up another another ship, let's say this is the nose of a ship, I could get that in there and sort of hold on to it, I guess. But maybe not with that. Maybe if that was the nose of a ship, it would just grab it like that, and then I'd be able to just park another ship on the end of it. Don't know how well that'll work. I haven't tested it, but that's the idea. So if it can be done, I have the ability to do it. So we're going to launch this. Oops, I didn't mean to save, but it doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is launch it with this rocket right here. It's called Kerbal Space Station because that's what I want it to be called when it's orbiting around the planet. But this is actually the rocket, which is pretty big, but not as big as you'd expect. You'd expect it to be, with conventional rocketry, a hell of a lot bigger than this. It would be a lot wider, it would be a lot taller. It would be going right through the floor. It wouldn't have these struts on it. Well, probably would have these struts on it, but not in the place that they're at. But in order to get this huge payload into orbit, we have to be pretty efficient with what we do. So we've got an asparagus system set up for the top section of this burning. We've got 6 mainsail engines on the outside here. They're set up for an asparagus. We've got 2 here, 2 here, and 2 there, and they are all feeding in one by one into this main engine right here, and that's going to be the main thrusting engine. That's going to be the last one to fall off, with the exception of these up here, which are basically just to finish off the orbit, because they are I keep forgetting what they're called. They're atomic rocket motors, and they are super efficient in low to nil atmosphere. So they're really fuel efficient, which is why we've got just a tiny bit of fuel for those. We've got 2 of them, tiny bit of fuel, and that will finish off the orbits. But these engines all here are going to get it into space. These ones down here are literally just to get it off the landing pad, because it needs a little bit more fuel than this will allow me to use. So we need these 6 down here just to give it the initial boost off the platform. They won't last very long, but they will get us to where we want to go. And then they'll drop off, and we'll have the asparagus system kick in. And as each of these is used up, it will drop off, and then these 2 will drop off, and then this one will drop off finally. Imagine that mirrored on the other side, so that one and that one drop off, then that one, that one, that one, that one. You get the idea. And then we'll be left with this one in the middle, which is actually held on with one of these things, so the NCS adapter, so that it actually fits through the landing legs right there. So that's the rocket, and let's go ahead and launch it. This is going to be very laggy, so bear with me, because there's like 230 parts to this spaceship, including the struts and fuel lines and everything else, basically. But it's all necessary to keep it in one piece, as far as I can tell. There's probably some excess stuff on here that I don't need, that I've got anyway, but whatever, it works, so I'm just going to go with it. So I have done a few test flights with this, so I know that it does work. I'm just doing the final thing on camera for you guys to enjoy. So we're got the SAS on, we've got full thrust, and we're just going to go. Here we go. So these things are going to power us up to, I don't know how far actually, but maybe a couple of thousand if we're lucky. Looks more like 1,500, but it's enough, so that's fine. There we go, 1500. Oh yeah, we'll reach 2000, maybe 2500 in fact. And it's about to run out very shortly. Now, and that explosion was not part of the main rocket, that was just that stuff down there that we jettisoned exploding. I think we blew up all of it actually. That's fine, it's not a problem. We're now working through the asparagus engines, which we're going to see very shortly because they're about to fall off. Is that 4? I think it is, yes. Did you? No, it didn't. It lagged, so it didn't actually drop those off quick enough. That's kind of annoying. But oh well. So yeah, that's the idea of the asparagus system. You use it up and then you drop it off. So this is the next fuel now. We're going to drop off another one in a moment. I want to get this done before I start doing the gravity turn, which means it's going to be about 20,000, which is okay. It's not ideal, but it's fine. There we go, there goes that. We're going to take off the SAS, and then we're going to manually turn it to 270. Try and keep it as close to 270 as possible. Just like that. And then we will put the SAS back on right here. We've still got another whole tank of fuel here, so we're just going to go with this. Okay, so we've got a apoapsis of nearly 200,000 now. I was going to get there anyway. Oops, that was not what I wanted to do. I hit the wrong button, because I'm an idiot. I went to hit M and I hit X instead, which shuts off the engine entirely. So, we want to get a little bit higher. Oh, we've got a bit of spin going on now, but that's okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut these engines off right there, and then we're going to detach those ones, which leaves us with just this main engine right here, which is still active, but is not firing right now. And the reason for that is because I want to use this engine to get the orbit going. We're up to nearly 400,000 meters with this one right here. It's sort of wibbling and wobbling around, but that's okay. We want to get this into an orbit, and then we will push on out to a million orbit. So, I thought that was the back of the thing falling off there. I think these will crash back to Earth because we have to Kerbin, because we don't have an orbit established yet. So they'll just go smash straight back into the planet, which is fine. And you can starting to see how cool this thing's going to look once it's in orbit already. It sort of looks like a proper spaceship, which is sweet, even though it's a space station. So, kind of not quite the same, but it's still cool. So we're going to get this thing leveled out, and then we're going to get it into position to do a burn when we get up to the apoapsis, which will be in 5 minutes, well, just under 6 minutes. So these things are gonna fly off with their empty fuel tanks and smash into the planet eventually. Not just yet, but eventually. And we've just gone past 270, but that's okay. Let's get this thing aligned. There we go. That's good. That is good. Right. We're going to try and keep it aligned to 270, because that way we can get, or we could do 90, but I'm doing 270 because I prefer to do it that way. Because then we can be sure that we're going exactly horizontal, because 270 is directly across the astral plane, or at least the astral plane according to Kerth, and that's the only one that I care about. So, I keep calling it Kerth, but it's actually called Kerbin, but I think Kerth's a better name, so, screw it. Okay, so let's get this back into position right here. It's actually fighting against me right here, and it's such a big ship that it's pretty unwieldy. I'm going to stick on the SAS right there to try and hold it in position. It's going to wibble and wobble about a bit, because the thrust vectoring from this engine here, even though it's not actually emitting any thrust, it's still sort of wobbling me around, which is a bit odd, but I'm not going to argue with it. I'm sure in future we'll have to do all of this using RCS, and that's going to be a massive pain in the arse. But for now we're good. So, let's go back to this view. How long have we got? Another 4 minutes. Let's... Oh, I can't speed things up while I've got the stability system on. That's okay, we can do this. Right. Okay, so we've got a minute to go. We want less than a minute, really. 20 seconds, that's absolutely fine. Let's get this back into position. As you can see, it's staying pretty much on this 270 line, which is great. We're just about to cross the apoapsis here, so really I want to be thrusting already. Here we go, let's put it right there, turn on the SAS, that's not great because it's slightly off course right now. It's being very fiddly. That's okay, we can fix this. It's a matter of getting the little dot in the middle just where you want it, and sometimes that can be a pain in the ass. But it looks like I pretty much got it there. The SAS messes it all up, but never mind. Right, so we're going to get this into an orbit right here. And it's going to run out of fuel eventually. Oh, that ran out of fuel way too early. Okay. Separate, and oops, open that so that can actually escape. And we need to start the engines. There we go. Right, so these are going to put us into the actual orbit then. I was hoping for a little bit more from that big engine, but that's okay. We got plenty of fuel, so I'm not too concerned about this. Let's get it back where we want it. It's right there. That's good. So our periapsis is now 150k, and we got nearly 400k for the apoapsis, which is fine. Are these gonna? I think that may crash into Kerbin, which actually is fine because that means it will be less work for me having to remove them from space manually, which is fine. I'm happy with that. As long as we've got enough thrust to get around, which we should do. We've got loads of fuel right here. And I love how these engines look in the dark, because you get it all lit up and red and looks super sweet. Also, this thing kind of reminds me of Firefly. I don't know how many of you have seen that, but it does kind of remind you of the Firefly ship, doesn't it? Does me anyway. At least some of it does. So let's see how we're doing here. We're approaching the periapsis actually, because we're expanding the apoapsis. That's good. This probably isn't this isn't the most fuel efficient place to be burning for this, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's turn off this. We're going to 600,000 out there. I want to go back sort of this way. I don't want to be too far out. 700,000, 750, 800, getting there, nearly there. 850, 900, 950. Let's throttle down a bit now, and we'll stop right there. 1,000,000 and 1,000. That's what I meant to do. I did mean to go slightly over. So that's good. We can now turn off the SAS, and we can start to drift around. We need to expand this over that side. In fact, how much fuel we got? Loads of fuel. We still got over half a tank of fuel left, so it should be more than enough. I don't know if this is actually going to orbit. Yeah, it looks like it's actually orbiting. It's kind of annoying, but it's dealable. I can deal with it. I'm kind of hoping it will eventually lose some of its altitude and smash back into the atmosphere. It looked like it was at about 60,000 right there, which is odd. I would have expected it to have caught right then. Let's slow down time here because I've got hardly any time to get this thing turned over. It needs to do a positive burn, not a negative burn, and we're off by about a degree, which is kind of annoying, but it's within acceptable limits. Take a sip of my cream soda. So yeah, we're about a degree off course, but that's okay. It's perfectly acceptable. I had to mute while I coughed right there. So yeah, we're now just passing the apoapsis, so we really should be burning already. But you know, I'm not the most efficient person in the world, so we'll just have to go here and burn from here. There we go. We'll stick this on, and then we watch the periapsis. Should come up fairly quickly. So this is going to increase as well, very, very slightly. That's okay. We can deal with that. We can do the fine adjustments later on. It's just a matter of getting it into the main orbit using these fuel tanks, which we should have plenty left of by the time we're done. See, 600,000 already. 700,000, 750, 800, 850, 900, 950, and that should be about, yep, pretty close. That's up to 11,000, and that's 8,000 under, so pretty close. So what we want to do, turn off the SAS, get over here, we will do a retro burn right here to get that back down to 1,000,000, and then we'll do a pro burn when we get over there to put the periapsis up to 1,000,000. Oh, that was going a bit fast for me. Right, and so you want a retro burn right here, which I think is the one we're turning towards right now. 30 seconds should be plenty of time to get this thing turned over. Hopefully, anyway. We'll see, though, I suppose. Right. There we go, nearly there. We still got a good 17 seconds to go, so there's not a problem. Let's get this thing in position, turn on the SAS, just to get it in position. 4, 3, 2, 1. Lock the SAS again, and do a very small burn. Because this will not take a lot to get it back down to where we want it. There we go, 7, it's a little bit lower than that. There we go, 300, that's good. 1,300,000 meters, that's good. And then we want to go around to the other side and do a regular burn. Yeah, this thing's not going to crash, that's kind of annoying. I'll deal with that though. So I don't like having debris in the atmosphere. It just clogs things up, and I've got enough things in the atmosphere as it is. It's not going to hit anything, but you know, I just don't want it there. So how long do we get here? 12 minutes, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slow down. Yeah, I actually do want a pro burn, so pretty much exactly where we want to be. Let's just speed up a little bit. Here we go, and there we go. Stick on the SAS and burn a little bit. 995, 996, 97, 8, 9, and pretty close. 1,068,000, 1,300,000. Nice. Okay. We're not quite there. We're pretty damn close. I mean, we're within 200 meters between the apoapsis and the periapsis, but that's not enough for me. I want to go down to less than 100. So, in fact, this actually needs to be a little bit higher, because when I turn this on its side, that's going to drop a little bit. So we want this to be about 1,150,000-ish. And this one needs to be about the same. So, do I want to retro burn? Yes, I do. I was doing this thing again. Sometimes when you come out of warp near where the periapsis is, it will shift the periapsis. I'm not quite sure why, but sometimes it does. So you go a little bit past it, and then it sort of warps it back again, which is very odd. But oh well, never mind. And because the orbit is so close, it's kind of going a bit crazy right there, but that's okay. It's not a problem. It's to be expected. Now then, yep, we're past that, so right, to 30, and what's that? 66. In fact, if I can get this rotated without it going below 1,000,000, I will take this. I will take it happily, in fact, because this is really good. Let's just try and get this thing rotated. If I can get it orientated to, in fact, I was going to say orientated to north, but it seems we're going to get orientated to south. That's okay. I don't mind that. As long as we're orientated to one of the poles, it's not a problem. I like to have my my ships orientated to the planet. So, yeah, this is looking good. Need to get the alignment just right, and it looks like, yeah, it's going to be pretty close to 1,000,000 exactly, but it shouldn't go under it, which is great. So, right here, let's put on the SAS to hold it there for a minute. Just let it sort itself out a minute. I could turn on the RCS, but that wouldn't really help all that much. Okay, let's turn it off, and 1,030,000-ish. 1,065,000, nice. That is absolutely perfect, which means we're now in orbit over Kerbin, and we can now dump those off. They'll disappear off somewhere, and we have no more rockets on this thing. We only have RCS units, which are sort of these things right here, but we don't actually need to use the RCS at all, because that these engines have got us perfectly where I wanted to be. In fact, even more perfectly than I could have hoped for. So these things, they'll fly off, and I'll get rid of them manually. What we do need to do, though, is open up all of these ladders, because otherwise I'll forget to do it. And they do look very cool. I also need to make sure that I don't accidentally click on one of these and decouple it, because that would be disastrous. My space station would fall apart, and that would be terrible. So let's extend these. We've got a few more to do as well. We've got the other side to do, and the one in the middle. Extend. There we go. I'm sure there's a shortcut key to do all of this, but I don't know what it is, so you just have to bear with me for a moment. Let's get these extended, and of course, as I said before, I think I said before anyway, the best part about these is they have a little light on them, so it lights up your space station from below in the dark, which looks great, and looks very very real space station-ish. So I'm happy with this, very happy indeed. Extend these, a couple left. Just one left. There we go. Great. So that is all the ladders lit up, and I think that looks really cool, especially in the dark. And these things on the end here, they just look fantastic. So yeah, that's the space station now in orbit. It's not quite aligned to the pole correctly. It's mainly because it's about a degree off right here. Yeah, you can see there's a very slight variation. In fact, it's sort of this way that I need to look. See, it's very slightly up on the periapsis side, which is a bit annoying, but it's not too bad. I mean, some of my other ones aren't exactly right, because you can see here they're not quite crossing over correctly. There's quite a big gap right there, but it's a pain in the arse to get it correctly, to get exactly correct, you know. Anyway, that has worked really well. Those things are going to fly off for miles and disappear, and I'll never see them again. I think eventually they will just float right off into space, but we're pretty good here. I mean, it looks like we're stationary, but we're not. We're moving, what's that, 1,485.6 meters a second, which is nice. And that'll probably stay fairly consistent, because we're at a pretty much exact altitude right here. And I believe at some point we will also pass, maybe not directly over Kerbal Space Command, but fairly close to it. Where is it? It is right there. So yeah, we will actually pass pretty much straight over it. Yeah, we'll be able to pass right over it. In fact, let's speed up time a bit and see if we can get over it in the daytime. That's not daytime. It's possible that we won't actually ever get to be over it in the daytime. No, we're not going to be able to get over it in the daytime at all, which kind of sucks, but oh well. Nothing we can do about it. So, yeah, it doesn't stay spun to the Earth, but you can get it to do that, but I don't know how. Well, I sort of have an idea, but haven't tried it yet, so, you know. Anyway, that is the space station, and I don't know if I showed you how to get rid of debris before, but I'm going to do it right now. These bits of debris right here, I'm going to go to this, you double click on it, on the M menu, and then you make sure that you've got the right piece, because I've occasionally ended the flight of a few that I didn't want to. That's how you do it. You end flight, and that will end the flight of the debris. Then you go back to whatever else you need to do. If you need to do multiple ones, you need to select a capsule somewhere, or I could have used this one here, but this one's pretty close, so I'm just using that. And then you select this one, and it should zoom straight in on it, but it might not do. There we go. There it is, and we want to get rid of that, so end the flight of that. And we have a little bit more to do down here as well. We've got this one down here which we need to get rid of, so let's go back to the space station again. I could have used any of the other ones, but again, using the space station because that's what this thing is from. I've just gotten used to doing it that way. So, last piece of debris. Here it is, the last mainsail engine. The rest of them smashed into the planet. So this is the last one to go, and we'll end flight. Go back to the tracking station, and there we are. We have the Kerbal Space Station in orbit, just over a million meters from sea level, from Kerbin, and it will remain there. We have the Mun at 11 million, but this one is that will be probably the toughest thing I ever put into orbit, just because it's so massive and heavy. Getting to like the Mun or Minmus is fairly simple in comparison because it's just so much lighter to get a pod over there with fuel. But to get that giant monstrosity into space that it just had no point in being that big is a bit of a pain in the arse. So anyway, that was the Kerbal Space Station. I hope you enjoyed watching me put it up, and I'll come back for more next time. Satellites right here. We have 16 satellites and 1 landed ship at Space Command. So we have these ones right here that are crossing over this way, horizontally and vertically, are the H satellites. They're the CurbSat H's. There's 1 to 8 of those, and they're orbiting at around 200,000 meters. And the ones which are crossing over this way, they're pretty much the same, but oriented different, are the L satellites, the CurbSat Ls. They're 1 to 8 as well, and they're at 100,000. So you've got 100,000 and then 200,000 for the H's. So we also have one more ship right here, which is named Kerbal Space Command, because it is actually... Hey there, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Things are a little bit different now. Not a lot different, but a little bit, because we've got a new version. It's 0.17.1, and we have music now. You probably can't hear it very well because I've turned it right down because it was overpowering my voice in the recording. But there is now music. You'll have to take my word for it. It's quite nice music too, actually, but it's only it only comes up on this loading screen here, or the menu screen. So I'm not sure how much use it is because you're never really going to listen to it. Either way, we're going to go ahead and get something accomplished. This, however, is a different save file to the one I was using before. So this is not the one where we landed on Minmus last time. We have different saves, so it's good to know where everything is. Anyway, we're going to go back to the Space Center. And what we're going to do today, because we don't have any satellites on the Moon or in Minmus, we don't have any landers there, what we're going to do is we're going to put a space station into orbit around Kerbin. It's going to go to 1 million meters around, so it's going to be sort of there-ish, about sort of that, something like that. And it is going to look like... This is 116 parts, so it's really big, really useless. But we're going to take a look at it. Here it is. This is it. This is probably the biggest thing I've ever launched, but it seems to be that every time I start, I get these 3 in the first 3 flights, or the first flight with 3 seats. So I took them and I put them into this spacecraft, and I've chucked them down here. Sort of relative safety away from the launch pad. I haven't hit them yet, and I've launched quite a lot of missiles. Well, I suppose they are missiles, but I've launched quite a lot of rockets, and I haven't managed to hit them yet. So we're doing okay. And they're gonna watch over Space Command and give me basically a marker from space. So there it is. That's Kerbal Space Command at KSC, Kerbal Space Command. So I can see that from no matter where I am. So I can orientate my my landings or whatever. Or if I want to do a geosynchronous orbit, I could do one there over KSC, actually sitting right at Kerbal Space Command. And the reason for that is I like to know where Kerbal Space Command is from space. So I just drop one down there. And in the pod here, this little like worker right here, we have Jebediah, Bill, and Bob Kerman. They are the 3 original Kerbinauts. If you played the older versions of KSP, you'll know that those are the 3 three Kerbinauts that you had to launch every time. You had no choice in what kind of pod you had on top. You had to have the Mark 1 pod, which took all three of these guys. But the Mark 1 pod is no more, and these guys are assigned to different missions. However, I got them all three in this one launch. I don't know if that's common